Welcome back, everyone. Weather here. In this update, we're going to be talking about the polar vortex being disrupted as cold air in Siberia will start plunging southbound in the next week or two with very heavy snow, and even parts of the south will start seeing some wintry precipitation. So let's take a look at the overall temperatures this morning in Siberia, folks, and this is not a misprint. That is 83 below zero. That is a bone-chilling cold. In fact, that's the coldest temperatures even in Siberia all the way back in January of 1982, folks. So that is some extremely cold stuff, and that at least will be heading southbound over the next week or two. So you can actually see the polar vortex up there in the stratosphere is starting to stretch out. It's starting being elongated and being displaced. That cold air is being displaced from the Arctic and push it southbound into the lower 48 over the next week or two. So if we take a look at the overall seasonal snowfall, what we've seen so far, we're about halfway through winter. So we've hit the halfway part, but the second half promises to be definitely much colder. So here's what we've seen so far. And what also is promising, now that California is going to be starting to dry out, that is a major shift in the overall setup over the next week or two. And we'll start putting the snow line further south. So areas that have been in a snow drought, a good chunk of the Ohio Valley, a good chunk of the mid-Atlantic into the Northeast will start seeing snow, and even parts of the South, well into Oklahoma, even parts of Texas will start getting into the action of some of that wintry precipitation, over the next week or two. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns on North America, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel. It's also important to hit the like button as well. It definitely helps out more than you know. So let's take a look at the overall setup for today, because we're going to be shutting off the taps in California. This is the last gasp of what has been a series of atmospheric river events over the last 3 weeks, and that is going to be a significant change in altering the pattern going forward. But this morning we still got severe weather to talk about. In fact, we've got a tornado watch, an active tornado watch across far eastern parts of Texas into Louisiana, back into portions of Arkansas, where the snow is really flying. Up there in Denver, they picked up a good 6 to 10 inches of snow, and it's still flying for them, but it's really going to be cranking up there in Nebraska and swinging across Iowa and heading into portions in and around the St. Paul area with that heavier snows, and then raining this morning in parts of Oklahoma. In fact, let's zoom into that tornado watch that goes on between now and 4 o'clock. So these areas are going to have to be high alert for those tornadic spin-ups. We've already seen several tornado warnings within this area as things start to get active between now and that 4 o'clock time frame. We could be looking at a couple strong tornadoes, potentially up to ping pong size hail is definitely not out of the question, and some 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts in and around the Huntsville area, back into Lufkin, Far East Texas. That'll swing and really get elevated back into Shreveport, into Monroe, into portions of Texarkana. As once you get up into Arkansas through Pine Bluff, into Little Rock areas, those are the areas that have to be most concerned about some of these stronger tornadoes possibly right now into the afternoon time frame. So definitely be on high alert for the next several hours. But then further to the north, here's your snow. This is the rest of the snow that's going to be happening between now and Friday morning on the latest high resolution guidance, as that snow will continue to fly in Colorado, but now swing into portions of Nebraska. Some of these places, like into, say, North Platte, could be picking up like 18 inches of snow. I can't even roll out some isolated amounts of 2 feet. And a bullseye hitting right there in Nebraska, a little bit lighter amounts, but a good swing swath of 4 to 6 inches, even some higher amounts of 6 to 8 inches through Iowa, as far as portions of Wisconsin there. And then once you get up into the Northeast, we'll be looking at some higher snow amounts up there in Vermont and New Hampshire and getting up into Maine. But then there's the rain further south. So not only are they dealing with those potential strong tornadoes and those higher wind gusts, but some heavier rains, and these could be training supercell thunderstorms where that red is, that could be 2 to 4 inches of these training cells. Could have some sporadic flood warnings spotted in these areas, but through Arkansas, through portions of Missouri here, could be looking at some very heavy rain as this pushes up into the Northeast through the Ohio Valley with a good ½ inch to about 1 inch of rainfall. Some of these areas up here in the Northeast, back into New York City, back into Massachusetts, and to Rhode Island along the Cape there, could be picking up a good 1 inch over the next 48 hours of rainfall. But you can see out in California, we definitely have dried out in parts of Southern California, but to the northern part, we're still getting that last gasp of that atmospheric river event, but it really dries up behind that. I mean, you're going to be needing the dry spell. The welcome rain was definitely welcome for sure to start, helping out with those reservoirs, and that we had him compounding with the snow melt that's going to be taking place over the next couple of months. But very welcome rain, and I think they're still going to be in a drought in these areas, but it definitely put a major dent and a lot of the drought that's been unfolding for many years in that area. But here's the change. Here's going to be the significant change. So let's look at the big picture going up into this weekend on the Northern Hemisphere view. We start to look at the Arctic first because that's where the cold air is now, but it won't be once we head into this weekend as it starts to get displaced. So that 83 below zero won't be 83 below up there in Siberia. It's going to be more or less, 40 to 50 below zero up there. So, but some of that cold air will start to get displaced. But the difference is we'll start to see ridging start to build in parts of Alaska. That shuts off the taps off the west coast, but it also puts the trough further underneath and sets up across the central part of the US, which again, these areas have been bone dry in the last month. Are starting to see the beginning stages of the transition of the overall shift and the setup that's going to be unfolding. So as we head into the weekend, we start to see that Arctic air really start to build. I wouldn't say this is Arctic just yet, but definitely colder anomalies. And by the time we get into this weekend, through parts of Oklahoma, through parts of Texas, and to say North Texas, I mean, we're talking the first time you've seen below average temperatures for over 3 weeks. So that's going to be a significant shift and the beginning stages of a much colder setup that will be coming as the temperature anomalies really start to elevate and start to put those positives over the top over portions of Canada here. So as we go into the weekend with the overall shift where it's snowing right now in Denver, the second setup is going to elongate and push that system a little bit further south. So now we're talking portions of the Texas Panhandle, western parts of Oklahoma will start getting into the action with some at least snowfall for them. But yes, even parts of central Texas, North Texas, where they've been missing out all the opportunities for rain because it's been further east. The setup is further west this time. So that's going to be a significant shift. At least we'll have opportunities to see at least some rain in these areas before it pushes east. And as it pushes east, we'll have the snow line drop further south. So here's the setup over that 24-hour period heading into this weekend on Sunday. So now we're talking areas into Missouri, places into, say, central Illinois. We'll start getting into the snow action. Indiana and through the Ohio Valley, western PA. These are areas that have not really seen that much snow. Portions of Kentucky, portions of Tennessee, even portions of Arkansas, at least opportunities to see at least some snow on Sunday as this system will pull through your way. Here's the overall temperatures as we go into Monday, right? So here's the step down process. I stopped the clock here about 3 o'clock. This gives you an idea. These are high temperatures, folks. These are definitely high temperatures. Where the snowpack is going to be even colder than that. So that's going to add another 10 degrees. And a lot of these areas in and around the Colorado area, back into North Texas, and the Texas Panhandle, we're talking freezing, if not 25 degrees for our high temperatures. That's an indication of some of that colder air will continue to drain from the west and slowly shift. Even a high of 59 in Dallas, folks, is something you have not seen in a very long time. So this is the beginning stages of an overall shift in the overall pattern as we get colder and colder next week. You can see the freezing temperatures, even almost freezing up there in Illinois for, say, a high temperature coming up on Monday. But again, the significant shift, the step down process as we go into Tuesday with another system coming in, then we'll start to have the snow line, or at least opportunities. Look at the 540 line. Look at the 540 line. That's all the way into Mexico, folks. That gives you an indication where the potential freezing temperatures could be. The difference is we have a low pressure center setting up shop further south. So now we're creating precipitation, but cold air draining from the north. We'll have opportunities in Oklahoma. We'll have opportunities in Texas, in parts of Texas, to see wintry precipitation coming up on Tuesday morning, as this low will continue to shift eastbound with the heavier rains pulling into Louisiana and the Mississippi and portions of Alabama there, but not severe, right? That's just rain. So look at the temperatures as we go into Tuesday, as that cold air will continue to drain. So now we're talking, 19 degrees in Amarillo, where it could be having some mixed precipitation, 33, 35 degrees. You can see the colder air coming in from the west and slowly building and pushes east as we get deeper into next week, with Arctic air up there in Canada waiting for the dam to break. And I think it will by the middle of next week. Of the Arctic air will start to filter in further into the lower 48. So this, look at the snow opportunities, or at least wintry precipitation opportunities for Tuesday. I think we have opportunities across the south that have not really seen much snow of anything so far this winter. We'll have opportunities in and around Oklahoma area. We'll have opportunities in Texas. We'll have opportunities in Arkansas. I've got this question the other day. When's it going to start snowing in Memphis, Tennessee, right? And so I think you have opportunities to see some snow in western Tennessee coming up on Tuesday of next week, as this, look at the snow line, pushes further and further south. So portions of western Kentucky, portions of southern portions of Indiana will start to see the snow, right? So that's the difference heading into next week. And as this continues to push northeast, there's Kentucky, there's Ohio locked in the snow. And that's something you haven't seen all winter, right? You're going to be locked in as the cold air will continue to drain from the Arctic, from west, and start the step down process all week long. So there's Thursday. This is your 26 time frame. So now we're getting to be 7-8 days out, but just gives you an indication. Now we're talking Arctic air starts to get into the mix of the setup with very cold temperatures. And the difference as we head into this next weekend, this is where things get really interesting. Here's the overall jet stream on the northern hemisphere view, right? So as the Arctic air drains from the north, continues to push further and further south with every system that comes in. The difference now is, look where the low pressure is, well down in there in Mexico. So as the cold air will continue to drain southbound, that will create even more wintry precipitation opportunities even further south this time as we head into next weekend. As the Arctic air really starts to come in, here's your overall temperature anomalies as the Arctic air will really start to show up by then with well below, you're already normally colder in January. It just hasn't been like that. But now we're going to be starting to see some of the coldest temperatures we've seen since the outbreak that's happened in December. So it's been a month. So that type of cold air starts to come back with 20, if not 30 degrees below average temperature anomalies hitting in some of the coldest times of the year into the winter months. So this is definitely some cold stuff that's going to be coming on the table as we get deeper into next week. And the Canadian is even more bullish, really expanding in those well below average temperature anomalies through the upper Midwest, through the Ohio Valley, and creeping all the way down to that colder plunging air, all the way down into Texas, and even Florida starts getting into the action with a lot of that colder air. So let's take a look at some of these just potential temperatures by the time we get into Friday morning next week. So all right, here's the latest European guidance. It's been a long time since we've seen 25 below zero up there in North Dakota, right? It's been about a month, right? We start to see those negative temperatures creep all the way down into Missouri, through Illinois, even single digits back into Kansas, and in through, you know, the teens in Oklahoma. There's Michigan in the single digits, right? And so as that cold air will continue to drain, and the Canadian model's even, again, more bullish. It's even showing some dangerously cold wind chills happening across 42 below zero. Again, this is stuff you have not seen in a month since that last real Arctic outbreak that unfolded. So definitely the Canadian model is probably the most bullish model right now of that colder air mass plunging well to the south, you know, as we get into next weekend. And as we get into the next weekend, it definitely gets things more interesting well down to the deep south of Texas, right? So we'll have that low pressure center setting up shop over in south of Mexico. So yes, you can't rule out, and this is a prime setup for wintry precipitation, even well south into Texas. You're going to have those opportunities coming along. Look where the 540 line is, well south of Atlanta, right? So you're definitely going to have opportunities with cold air will continue to plunge further southbound. And then there's the Canadian, the kind of the same thing. So the European and the Canadian are kind of in sync right now, with not only that colder air, but they're seeing some of that wintry precipitation even point south, and that will actually swing across portions of the southeast and heading up into the northeast as the deeper we go into next weekend. But there's plenty of cold air as that Arctic air will continue to drain in. By the time we get into next Friday through next weekend, we'll start to see that true Arctic air. So it's a step down process all week, right? You're really warm now. You start to trend colder, and then you start to get the Arctic air filtering in by the time we get into middle of next week. And by the time we get into next weekend, it's really cold across the lower 48. And then if we take it beyond that, if we take a look at some of the CFS guidance through the end of the month, through the first couple of days of February, it's not going to be over. Well, that's just the beginning stages, and we'll have even more Arctic air filtering in. And I think by then, even the Northeast will be locked in to all the colder anomalies. So pretty much the entire lower 48 will be locked into the cold by then. And it just continues as we get deeper into February. Even in the first week or two, even into the third week of February, we still could be colder on the colder side as Arctic air will continue to drain in, and that colder air looks good. So definitely a lot of promises and changes on the table. So this kind of gives you an idea on where the difference of where the snow has been and where it might be the next 10 days. So I have opportunities with the step down process further into Oklahoma, further into Texas. You can't take this verbatim, but we'll at least have opportunities well south, right? We'll have opportunities further south through the Ohio Valley. We'll have opportunities in parts of the Southeast, even in the Tennessee Valley. We'll definitely have opportunities up there into the Northeast as we'll start to get that colder air, especially as we enter the latter half into January. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me in the next update while I protect you before and after storm.